I'm brewing morning coffee when loud splashing hits. I glance out the kitchen window and freeze. Brenda Whitmore, our power-mad HOA president, is doing laps in my pool like she owns the place. Draped in my towel, sprawled on my chaise, raiding my outdoor fridge for chilled water. Then, dripping wet, she struts to my door and tapes a $500
emergency violation fine.
Yeah.
Unsafe pool chemicals, fix now.
After her illegal swim. You trespass, use my stuff, then fine me for your mess? Big mistake, Brenda. Never mess with a chemistry teacher who keeps certain compounds handy. What happened next left her in total meltdown mode, screaming, scrubbing, the whole neighborhood watching her panic. What would you do if your HOA Karen pulled this? Drop your revenge plans in comments. Where are you watching from? Like and sub for the full chaotic payback. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare started. I'm Nathaniel Fletcher, high school chemistry teacher, single dad to 12-year-old Zoe. 6 months ago, I inherited my grandmother's house in Willowbrook Heights, Colorado, modest 1970s ranch with one gorgeous feature, an in-ground pool surrounded by prize-winning rose bushes. The gentle hum of that pool filter became our evening soundtrack. I'd sit on the smooth concrete edge with morning coffee, watching Zoe practice dives while chlorine mixed with sweet rose scents in the summer air. Those rainbow droplets sparkling in sunset light, pure magic after a brutal divorce left me scraping together teacher salary to afford this place. But apparently, some people think my pool should be community property. Meet Brenda Whitmore, 52, self-appointed neighborhood dictator, 6 years as HOA president because nobody's suicidal enough to challenge her. Lives in a gaudy McMansion with landscaping deader than her personality. Husband travels constantly selling pharmaceuticals, probably to escape her 47-page community standards manual she personally authored. Drives a white BMW with standard vanity plates because subtlety died when she was born. 3 weeks after moving in, I get certified mail that makes me see red. $500 fine for unauthorized pool chemistry levels exceeding community safety standards. Violation date? 3 days before I moved in. I called the HOA office, Brenda's kitchen phone, and got her nervous assistant claiming prior testing for community safety. When I asked who authorized testing my private property, she hung up faster than a telemarketer caught lying. That's when I went full chemistry teacher mode and installed security cameras. The footage was gold. For weeks, Brenda had been waltzing through my gate with clipboard, testing kit, and a fake, certified community safety inspector badge you can buy online for $12. The woman was conducting pool inspections like she worked for the EPA. Armed with video evidence, I knocked on her door. Brenda answered in a terry cloth robe at 2 p.m., wine glass in hand, red flag numero uno. Mrs. Whitmore, we need to discuss this fine. I have footage proving you've been trespassing. I have legitimate authority to protect property values. Pool chemistry affects everyone's investment. She waved that fake badge like a magic wand. I'm certified. Your pool violated standards 3 times. Fix it in 48 hours or face daily fines. Ma'am, you have zero legal authority. Are you threatening me? Her voice hit that Karen frequency that shatters wine glasses in neighboring states. I'll report this hostility to the city. Door slam. Classic Karen exit strategy. 2 days later, she struck again. 6 a.m. While I'm making Zoe breakfast, Brenda's back with her little chemistry set, testing my water like she's searching for plutonium. Left my gate wide open, pool cover askew, then slapped another fine on my door. $300 for failure to maintain secure pool area, the area she just left unsecured. Here's where it gets interesting. My neighbor, Mrs. Melanie, sweet retired librarian with steel spine, approached me that evening while I skimmed leaves. The crunch of autumn debris under my net felt oddly therapeutic. Marcus, thank God someone's fighting back. She glanced around nervously. Brenda extorted $800 from me last year for non-compliant mailbox height. Paid it because she claimed legal authority. Turns out Mrs. Melanie wasn't alone. I spent the weekend doing chemistry teacher research. Talked to neighbors, cross-referenced stories. 4 families, similar sob stories. Fake fines for invented violations totaling over $4,000 in 2 years. All paid out of fear. Jim Kowalski, retired firefighter, $650 for unauthorized patriotic decorations, also known as his American flag. Sarah Thompson, $400 for non-compliant garden gnome placement. David Rodriguez, $1,200 for excessive holiday lighting. That's when the light bulb went off brighter than David's Christmas display. Brenda wasn't just power hungry, she was running a criminal enterprise disguised as community service. And chemistry teachers were really good at identifying compounds that don't belong in the solution. The next morning, I'm grading chemistry exams when that familiar gate creak hits at 6 a.m. Through my kitchen window, I watch Brenda set up what looks like a mobile laboratory on my patio table. Beakers, testing strips, pH meter, and a clipboard labeled Official Inspection in Comic Sans font. This woman's conducting pool analysis like she's hunting for uranium. But then she does something that makes my chemistry teacher soul die a little. Dumps an entire bottle of cloudy liquid directly into my pristine pool water. I'm watching her contaminate my perfectly balanced chemicals, then photograph the murky results like she just discovered evidence of environmental terrorism. The performance takes 20 minutes. She leaves my gate hanging open like a barn door, doesn't secure the pool cover, and slaps another fine on my door. $300 for failure to maintain secure pool area, the same area she just sabotaged and abandoned. Time to get scientific about this problem. During lunch break, I dove into the real HOA bylaws, not Brenda's fantasy fiction, but the actual 1987 documents filed with Boulder County. You know what I found? Absolutely nothing about water testing authority, safety inspections, or enforcement powers. The whole association technically dissolved in 1995 due to lack of participation, which I learned from my old law professor who always said, when in doubt, check the public records. They don't lie like people do. So Brenda's been running a fake HOA for years, collecting money under completely fabricated authority. That evening, Mrs. Melanie shows up at my door with intelligence that would impress the FBI. The scent of her homemade cookies mixed with righteous anger as she spread bank receipts across my kitchen table like evidence in a murder trial. Marcus, I've been Nancy Drewing this situation. Brenda's victim list is longer than a CVS receipt. The evidence was staggering. The Kowalskis, $650 for displaying an American flag inconsistent with community standards. Apparently patriotism violates Brenda's aesthetic vision. The Thompsons, $400 because their garden gnome exceeded regulation height by 3 inches, a regulation Brenda invented on Tuesday and enforced Wednesday. The Rodriguezes, $1,200 for excessive holiday lighting. That was literally one string of white lights. Total documented extortion, $4,200 over 2 years. She tells everyone the same story, Mrs. Melanie explained. Pay up or face liens against your property. Most people are too scared to fight City Hall, even when it's fake City Hall. Looking at this paper trail, my teacher brain started connecting dots like a chemistry equation. I'd seen something similar in graduate school. A case study about HOA fraud where residents never verified authority because they assumed someone else had checked. That night, I crafted what I call malicious compliance, a beautifully polite letter including actual HOA bylaws, highlighted in yellow for emphasis, requesting immediate reversal of all fraudulent fines. I hand-delivered copies to Brenda along with signatures from 5 neighbors supporting bylaw clarification. Translation: we know you're running a scam, please stop. I also installed motion-activated cameras around my pool area because chemistry teachers believe in solid documentation, and I had a feeling Brenda's next move would be worth recording. Her response exceeded my wildest expectations. 10 p.m. phone call, voice shaking with Karen rage. Mr. Fletcher, this harassment will not be tolerated. I'm calling police for stalking me with legal documents. Apparently, providing actual bylaws constitutes criminal stalking in Brenda's alternate reality. She scheduled an emergency board meeting and blast emailed the neighborhood claiming I was endangering property values through reckless pool maintenance and defiance of safety protocols. But here's where Brenda made her fatal mistake. She doubled down instead of backing off. 2 days later, I come home to find 3 figures in my backyard conducting what looked like a hazmat investigation. Brenda had recruited backup. Harold Peterson, retired accountant, thick glasses, couldn't see past his own nose, wearing an Amazon safety vest, and Patricia Mills, substitute teacher turned professional brown nose, documenting evidence with an iPad. The security footage was pure comedy. Harold testing my pool temperature with a meat thermometer while squinting at test strips he obviously couldn't read. Patricia photographing my skimmer basket from 17 different angles like she was documenting alien technology. Brenda orchestrating the circus like a general commanding her troops to victory. Their professional investigation concluded with a citation. $500 for maintaining pool chemicals requiring immediate professional remediation. Professional remediation of what? Crystal clear water with perfect pH balance that I test daily because pool chemistry is literally my day job? But watching that footage, I realized something important. Brenda wasn't just escalating her scam. She was creating a paper trail of her own criminal activity. Every fake inspection, every fraudulent fine, every trespassing incident was being documented by her own hand. Sometimes the best way to catch a criminal is to let them document their own crimes. Time to give this chemistry class a lab experiment they'd never forget. Brenda's emergency HOA board meeting summons arrived like a court order. Certified mail, fancy letterhead. Tuesday, 2 p.m. when working parents are trapped at their jobs. Classic power move. The location? Her living room instead of the community center, because democratic process is apparently optional in Brenda's kingdom. I showed up with legal pad and righteous fury, ready to watch this circus perform. Her living room reeked of vanilla candles fighting a losing battle against anxiety sweat. The grandfather clock ticked like a bomb timer while Harold shuffled papers he couldn't read without his missing glasses. Patricia sat poised with her iPad like a court stenographer, and Bruce the landscaper looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. This emergency session addresses dangerous defiance by a hostile homeowner, Brenda announced, pointing at me like I was public enemy number one. Harold immediately seconded a motion nobody had made. Patricia nodded so hard I worried about concussion. Bruce studied his phone like it contained escape routes. According to actual HOA bylaws, I interrupted, emergency meetings require 7 days' notice and must be held at designated community spaces, not private homes. Those are outdated rules, she snapped. Current safety protocols override bureaucratic procedures. Safety protocols she'd invented approximately 20 minutes ago. But then Patricia dropped the script I'd been waiting for. We need to see your pool's insurance documentation. The liability risk affects everyone's premiums. Game time. I pulled out 15 years of grandmother's meticulous records, insurance docs, professional inspections, safety certifications dating back to installation. Everything legitimate, documented, bulletproof. Brenda's confident smirk started cracking like old paint. During the coffee break, Bruce approached me with the nervous energy of a man carrying secrets. Your pool gets annual professional inspections? He whispered, glancing toward the kitchen where Brenda was loudly clattering dishes. She told me neighborhood pools weren't being maintained properly. That's when he confessed everything. Last summer, Brenda hired him for water quality assessments on 6 neighborhood pools. $200 cash for what he assumed was legitimate HOA business. He'd collected samples, tested chemicals, documented everything while homeowners were at work, completely without their knowledge or consent. She said it was preventive maintenance to protect property values, Bruce explained, looking sick. I thought I was helping the community. My chemistry teacher brain connected the dots instantly. 6 pools, professional data, detailed documentation. Brenda had been building a surveillance database for over a year. Back in graduate school, we studied a case where fraudsters used legitimate scientific data to support fake claims, manipulating real information to create false narratives. Then came Brenda's grand performance. She produced a thick folder of Bruce's unwitting surveillance work. Professional testing reveals Mr. Fletcher's pool contains dangerous chlorine imbalances, improper pH levels, and contamination risks requiring immediate professional intervention. She was using Bruce's legitimate test results to justify completely fabricated violations. The woman had weaponized actual chemistry data to support her extortion scheme. When I requested copies of those test results, Brenda declared them confidential HOA property. Meeting minutes from past 3 years? Privileged information. Financial audit? That's classified. Everything confidential except her authority to fine people, apparently. My announcement about consulting a property attorney, complete bluff but beautifully delivered, turned Brenda's face through more color changes than a mood ring in a microwave. This meeting is postponed due to legal threats and hostile behavior, she declared, banging her coffee mug like a gavel. Mr. Fletcher's intimidation tactics prove his guilt. Guilty of what? Reading actual bylaws? That evening's certified letter escalated everything. Final notice. $1,200 fine for continued defiance and disruptive conduct during official proceedings. She doubled the extortion because I quoted legitimate rules at her illegitimate meeting. But Bruce's revelation had exposed her entire operation. Brenda wasn't just making up violations. She was perverting legitimate science, twisting real data through her filter of fake authority to create professional-looking justification for criminal behavior. Mrs. Melanie organized a neighborhood coffee meeting the next morning. 7 families showed up with 17 different fines totaling over $6,000. Same pattern everywhere. Mysterious violations discovered through safety inspections nobody remembered authorizing. Jim Kowalski, retired firefighter with 30 years municipal experience, cut straight to the truth. In 3 decades of public service, I never saw this much fake authority operate unchallenged for this long. But here's what really got my attention. Every fine coincided with Bruce's testing schedule. She'd been using his professional data as the foundation for her elaborate fraud, turning legitimate chemistry into criminal evidence. The woman had corrupted actual science to support fictional law enforcement. As a chemistry teacher, that felt personal. She wasn't just stealing money, she was prostituting the scientific method I dedicated my career to teaching. Time to give Brenda a chemistry lesson she'd never forget, starting with a practical demonstration of cause and effect. Saturday morning, 9:47 a.m. I'm organizing chemistry supplies when my back gate explodes open like a police raid. What I witness next defies all logic. Brenda storms into my yard, leading her official inspection team. Harold in that ridiculous Amazon safety vest, Patricia clutching her iPad, and some stranger with a toolbox. But instead of inspecting, they start stripping down to swimwear. Harold brought swim trunks. Patricia packed a waterproof phone case. The stranger, Gary the locksmith, paid $200 cash, films himself picking my gate lock for legal documentation. They're not here to inspect my pool. They're here to use it. All 3 climb into my water like they're conducting aquatic research. Harold does leisurely backstroke while declaring viscosity levels require extended evaluation. Patricia floats on my pool noodle, documenting chemical reactions between sips of the mimosa Brenda brought in a thermos. Brenda sprawls on my floating lounger like she's at a resort, occasionally barking orders about proper documentation procedures. This isn't an inspection. It's a pool party with fake paperwork. For 45 minutes, they treat my backyard like their private club. They use my towels, raid my outdoor fridge for cold drinks, rearrange my furniture for optimal documentation angles. The sound of their laughter mixing with splashing water while they're literally trespassing makes my teacher brain short-circuit. Gary the locksmith gets uncomfortable and drives off without payment, but not before recording everything for his own legal protection. Smart man. When they finally climb out, pruned and satisfied, Brenda slaps a citation on my door. $800 for hazardous chemical levels requiring immediate professional remediation. Hazardous chemicals they just spent an hour soaking in. But here's where my chemistry training revealed the real crime. Testing my water that evening, I discovered someone had dumped aluminum sulfate directly into my balanced system. The cloudy water and disrupted chemistry gave Brenda legitimate maintenance issues to point at as violations. She'd sabotaged my pool to create the problems she was fining me for. Zoe spotted what my anger missed. "Dad, someone moved your pool thermometer to the wrong side and stole the chlorine floater. Plus, my dive sticks are arranged weird, like adults were playing games with them." The gate latch was also damaged in a way that looked accidental but required specific tools and knowledge to break properly. This wasn't random vandalism. Brenda had orchestrated systematic sabotage disguised as official business. I spent that night analyzing residue samples like a forensic scientist. The aluminum sulfate was a specific brand, precise concentration, calculated amount based on pool volume. This level of chemical knowledge came from somewhere, most likely Bruce's detailed surveillance reports from last summer. Brenda had been planning this attack for months, but she made one critical error. She documented everything herself. Mrs. Melanie's emergency coffee gathering that evening drew 9 families, all carrying Brenda receipts and horror stories. The evidence painted a clear picture. Patricia admitted Brenda specifically asked her to document safety violations during today's inspection. She'd been recruited to manufacture false evidence. Jim Kowalski confirmed no city inspector named Harold existed anywhere in municipal records. Gary the locksmith, feeling guilty, admitted Brenda hired him for legitimate HOA access before he realized it was breaking and entering. The smoking gun came from Harold's own mouth. During their pool party, he'd bragged to Patricia about finally using this community resource properly. Audio captured crystal clear by my security cameras. They knew they were trespassing. They knew they were using my pool for recreation. They filmed themselves doing it while pretending it was official inspection. Officer Rodriguez watched the footage twice, shaking his head like he'd seen everything but this topped it all. "Sir, this is breaking and entering, property damage, and fraud. Clear criminal behavior disguised as civil authority." He offered to arrest them immediately. I declined. Not because I felt generous, but because criminal charges would end this too quickly. Brenda would get a slap on the wrist, pay a fine, and probably move somewhere else to run the same scam on new victims. But I had a better idea brewing in my chemistry teacher brain. See, back in graduate school, I learned about a fascinating compound called methylene blue, completely harmless, FDA approved, used in medical diagnostics and fish tank treatments. But it has one interesting property. When dissolved in water at the right concentration, it's completely invisible until it contacts human skin oils. Then it creates temporary blue staining that lasts 24 to 48 hours, perfect for marking people who don't belong in your pool. Watching that security footage of Brenda's unauthorized pool party, I realized she'd given me the perfect opportunity. She clearly planned to return. Her citation demanded re-inspection within 72 hours to verify remediation compliance. Time to prepare a chemistry demonstration that would mark her criminal behavior in a way the whole neighborhood could see. Some lessons are best taught through hands-on experimentation. Sunday evening, I'm researching methylene blue concentrations when Jim Kowalski's urgent knock interrupts my chemistry planning. The scent of his wife's pot roast still clings to his jacket as he steps inside, clutching a manila folder thick as a phone book. "Marcus, Margaret found something that changes everything." His voice carries the gravity of a man who's seen 30 years of municipal corruption, but nothing quite like this. Margaret, retired city clerk with access to public records and a nose for fraud, had spent her weekend digging into Brenda's credentials. What she discovered would make a federal prosecutor do backflips. "There hasn't been a legitimate HOA in Willowbrook Heights since 1995, Jim announces, spreading documents across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. The original association dissolved due to non-payment of state filing fees and complete lack of participation. Brenda Whitmore has been operating a completely fictitious organization for 6 years. The paper trail tells the whole sordid story. She opened a business checking account called Willowbrook Heights HOA, using her home address as headquarters. No board members listed with the state, no legitimate bylaws filed, no legal authority whatsoever. Just Brenda, a computer, and the breathtaking audacity to print fake letterhead. But here's where it gets criminal. Every deposit slip matches fraudulent fine amounts collected from terrified neighbors. The same account shows monthly BMW payments, landscaping bills for her personal property, and vacation expenses to Hawaii, Cabo, and a Mediterranean cruise. Total documented theft, $18,000 over 6 years. Margaret says each fake fine constitutes criminal fraud under Colorado statute, Jim explains, pointing to legal codes he'd researched with firefighter thoroughness. Every threat about liens or enforcement adds extortion charges. The woman's been running a criminal enterprise disguised as community service. My teacher brain processes this like solving a complex equation. I'd read about similar scams in graduate school. A criminology case study about fake authority figures exploiting suburban compliance. The psychological principle is simple. People assume someone else verified the paperwork, especially when threats come wrapped in official-looking documents. Brenda discovered that scared homeowners pay fake fines rather than fight fake authority. It gets worse, Jim continues grimly. Margaret found 3 similar cases across Colorado, fake HOAs targeting dissolved associations in upscale neighborhoods. Apparently it's a growing scam. Move in, declare yourself president of a reactivated HOA, then start collecting back dues and violation fines from people too busy to check public records. The criminal genius is sickeningly simple. Exploit suburban assumptions about bureaucracy and authority. But Brenda made one fatal error. She documented everything. Every fake inspection report, every fraudulent citation, every threatening letter creates an airtight criminal case. Her obsessive record-keeping, meant to project professional authority, actually provides perfect evidence for prosecution. "We could end this right now," Jim suggests, tapping the evidence pile. One phone call to the district attorney and Brenda's looking at multiple felony counts. The temptation is enormous. Immediate justice, criminal prosecution, problem solved. But staring at 6 years of victim statements and fraudulent fines, I realize this community needs more than quiet justice. They need to see exactly how thoroughly they've been played. People who paid thousands in fake fines deserve to watch their tormentors' public downfall. They need front row seats to her destruction. Jim, what if we let Brenda hang herself publicly first? Give the neighborhood a chance to see her true colors before law enforcement takes over? His grin carries 30 years of delayed gratification. You still planning that chemistry demonstration? I'm planning to give this community the most educational science experiment of their lives. Sometimes the best justice is letting criminals expose themselves spectacularly, especially when you can add a little color to the process. Monday evening, my garage looks like a mad scientist's laboratory. Beakers bubbling, pH strips scattered across workbenches, and enough chemical knowledge to make my high school students either terrified or impressed. Time to weaponize my chemistry degree in ways they definitely didn't cover in teacher training. The answer sits in a small blue bottle labeled methylene blue, a compound I'd used years ago during medical lab rotations. The sharp medicinal smell brings back memories of diagnostic procedures and fish tank treatments, but tonight it smells like justice. Here's the beautiful science. Methylene blue is completely FDA approved, harmless as table salt, used in everything from medical diagnostics to aquarium maintenance. But it has one spectacular property perfect for marking trespassers. Dissolved in pool water at precise concentrations, it's invisible to the naked eye until it contacts human skin oils. Then boom, temporary blue staining that lasts 24 to 48 hours. My old professor used to say, chemistry is just cooking with better equipment and more predictable results. Tonight, I'm cooking up revenge with molecular precision. The calculation requires the kind of math that makes my students groan. Pool volume, 20,000 gallons. Molecular weight, 319.85 grams per mole. Desired concentration, 1 part per million. Temperature coefficients for dissolution. Basic chemistry applied to creative problem solving, which is exactly what I teach every day, except my classroom examples never involved marking criminals. Key advantage: vitamin C tablets neutralize the staining instantly, so legitimate users avoid marking while trespassers get permanently tagged for public viewing. While I'm measuring compounds with scientific precision, Mrs. Melanie orchestrates community response with the efficiency of a retired librarian who's cataloged every neighborhood grievance for 6 years. Saturday's meeting is legitimately organized. Proper 7-day notice, community center reserved, 11 families confirmed, potluck organized, because nothing builds solidarity like shared casseroles. Jim Kowalski works his firefighter network, calling reporter Sarah Martinez from Channel 9. Got an interesting HOA fraud story developing, he tells her, voice carrying 30 years of public service credibility. Might want cameras ready Saturday afternoon for potential criminal exposure. The psychological bait requires surgical precision. Through Patricia, who's increasingly uncomfortable with Brenda's escalating demands but trapped by fear and complicity, I plant carefully calculated information. Casual mention of my mandatory teacher training Saturday morning, suggestion that the pool will be unmonitored for several hours, hint that Brenda might want final compliance inspection before the community meeting. Criminal Psychology 101. Give them the opportunity they can't resist. Friday evening, I execute chemical preparation with laboratory precision. The methylene blue dissolves completely in warm distilled water before entering the pool's circulation system. At proper concentration, it's undetectable. No color, no scent, no taste. Just invisible molecular justice waiting patiently for skin contact. For legal protection, I document everything like I'm preparing for peer review, safety data sheets, medical literature confirming harmlessness, time-stamped calculations, photos of preparation process. If this ends up in court, my documentation will be bulletproof. Security cameras get upgraded to high definition with audio recording and motion-activated cloud backup. Multiple angles, neighbor witnesses positioned strategically, and Jim monitoring from his living room with clear sight lines. When Brenda springs this trap, Every second gets documented from multiple perspectives. The most important preparation happens over homemade pizza with Zoe, because she deserves honest explanation for why Daddy's science experiments might turn bad people blue. Remember suggesting we add sparkly stuff to confuse the mean lady? I ask, cutting her slice into manageable triangles. Her eyes light up with 12-year-old mischief. Did you figure out how to make it work? Something like that. But if you see anyone turn blue tomorrow, don't be scared. It's just chemistry showing everyone who the real troublemakers are. She giggles with pure appreciation for scientific justice. Like litmus paper showing acids and bases? Exactly, sweetheart. Sometimes chemistry helps us see truth that wasn't obvious before. Saturday morning dawns with perfect Colorado sunshine and crystal clear skies. Ideal conditions for outdoor photography and community revelations. I pack a visible overnight bag, create obvious appearance of leaving for teacher training, then slip into Mrs. Melanie's kitchen with perfect view of my backyard. The trap sits ready, invisible and patient. Community organized, cameras rolling, evidence documented. All that remains is waiting for Brenda to demonstrate why you never mess with someone who understands molecular chemistry and has access to school laboratory supplies. Some educational demonstrations require hands-on experimentation to truly grasp the underlying principles. Today, Brenda Whitmore gets practical instruction in cause and effect that no fake authority can counteract. Let's see how she handles being marked by her own criminal behavior. Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. I'm positioned at Mrs. Melanie's kitchen window with a perfect view of my backyard and a cup of coffee that's about to become completely unnecessary for staying alert. Right on schedule, Brenda's white BMW pulls up like she's arriving for a royal inspection. But she's not alone. Harold emerges wearing that ridiculous Amazon safety vest. Patricia clutches her documentation iPad, and some guy I don't recognize carries a professional locksmith's toolbox. Gary the locksmith. She actually hired him back after he fled last time. Through Mrs. Melanie's window, I watch the most brazen display of criminal confidence I've ever witnessed. Brenda directs Gary to pick my gate lock while she films him with her phone for official documentation of emergency access procedures. The sound of metal tools scraping against my lock makes Mrs. Melanie wince beside me. She's actually recording herself committing breaking and entering, Mrs. Melanie whispers, clutching her own phone to capture everything. The woman's documenting her own crimes. But what happens next exceeds my wildest expectations. All three criminals change into bathing suits, actual swimwear, for their thorough safety assessment. Harold strips down to swim trunks that look like they haven't seen sunlight since the Clinton administration. Patricia emerges from behind my pool house wearing a floral one-piece and waterproof phone case. Brenda sports a designer bikini that probably costs more than my monthly grocery budget. They're not here to inspect my pool. They're here to use it as their personal resort. All three slide into my chemically enhanced water like they're conducting some kind of aquatic research project. Harold immediately begins doing leisurely backstroke laps while declaring the water viscosity requires extended evaluation for safety compliance. Patricia floats on my pool noodle, dictating chemical reaction observations to her waterproof recording app. Brenda sprawls across my floating lounger, sipping what appears to be a pre-mixed mojito from her insulated tumbler. The methylene blue works exactly as calculated. Within 3 minutes, faint blue discoloration appears on Harold's pale legs. Patricia notices strange blue tinting on her arms and assumes it's chemical contamination from improper pool maintenance. Brenda spots blue staining on her hands and immediately panics about toxic exposure from illegal substances. The transformation accelerates as they thrash around in confusion. More skin contact means more blue staining. Harold's entire torso turns increasingly azure as he frantically tries to climb out. Patricia screams about chemical burns while live-streaming her blue-tinged panic to Facebook. Brenda shrieks about attempted murder by poisoning as her designer bikini contrasts beautifully with her new Smurf-like complexion. All three tumble out of my pool looking like rejected extras from a fantasy movie, dripping blue water and screaming about chemical warfare. Brenda immediately calls 911, voice shaking with Karen rage. "Emergency! We've been poisoned by illegal pool chemicals. Send hazmat teams immediately." Harold frantically scrubs his blue skin with my pool towels, which only spreads the staining and makes everything worse. Patricia continues live streaming while sobbing about community leaders under chemical attack. Gary the locksmith, who stayed safely dry, backs away from the blue chaos and drives off without payment. The emergency response is everything I hoped for and more. Fire department hazmat team arrives first. Jim Kowalski's former colleagues rolling up with full chemical detection equipment. Paramedics assess 3 blue-stained victims for medical emergency while trying not to laugh. Police respond to possible assault with dangerous chemicals, and local news monitoring scanner traffic dispatches reporter Sarah Martinez. My strategic return timing is perfect. I arrive home at 12:45 p.m. to find emergency vehicles surrounding my house and 3 blue-stained criminals being examined by paramedics. I express appropriate shock and concern while offering full cooperation with the investigation. Officers, I'm happy to provide complete chemical inventory and safety documentation, I announce, pulling out meticulously prepared folders. I maintain detailed records of all pool chemicals as required by my insurance policy. The scientific explanation unfolds beautifully. I demonstrate methylene blue's harmless properties with safety data sheets, medical literature, and precise concentration calculations. Paramedics confirm no medical emergency exists, just temporary cosmetic staining from FDA-approved compounds. The hazmat team classifies everything as non-toxic aesthetic reaction. Brenda's desperate spin attempts become increasingly unhinged. She demands criminal charges for deliberate poisoning of community officials, threatens lawsuits for permanent disfigurement and emotional trauma, insists the emergency meeting be postponed due to her medical condition. But reporter Sarah Martinez is already interviewing neighbors about the blue HOA controversy, and Patricia's Facebook livestream is going viral with comments like, "Why were they in someone else's pool?" and "Looks like Smurf's having a meltdown." The community gathering momentum is unstoppable. Neighbors arriving early for the 2 p.m. meeting witness Blue Brenda's complete breakdown. Mrs. Melanie provides running commentary to the growing crowd, and Jim confirms the fire department found 0 safety violations. Brenda stands alone, blue and increasingly desperate, while evidence of her criminal trespassing spreads across social media in real time. Some chemistry demonstrations exceed all educational expectations. Community Center, 2 p.m. Saturday. The parking lot looks like a county fair. 23 neighbors showed up, which breaks every HOA meeting attendance record since 1987. Reporter Sarah Martinez sets up her camera, while photographer Jake captures the crowd. Officer Rodriguez stays to ensure peaceful proceedings, but his bemused expression suggests he's never seen anything quite like this. Brenda arrives still visibly blue despite 40 minutes of scrubbing, wearing long sleeves and a wide-brimmed hat that fools absolutely nobody. Her entrance triggers a wave of whispered commentary and poorly suppressed laughter. "Ladies and gentlemen," she begins, voice shaking with righteous fury, "today I was the victim of a premeditated chemical assault by a dangerous homeowner who booby-trapped his pool to attack legitimate HOA officials." Harold nods vigorously from the back row, his blue-tinged hands folded like he's praying for credibility. Patricia sits hunched over her phone, desperately trying to delete her viral Facebook live stream that's already been screenshot 1,000 times. Brenda produces a thick folder of documented violations and safety concerns, waving it like evidence in a murder trial. This criminal deliberately poisoned community leaders conducting lawful safety inspections. I demand your support for immediate criminal prosecution and civil litigation. That's my cue. Mrs. Whitmore, before we discuss prosecution, perhaps the community should see what actually happened. I connect my laptop to the projector and pull up crystal clear security footage on the community center's main screen. The room falls dead silent as they watch Brenda's crew pick my gate lock, change into swimwear, and spend 40 minutes using my pool as their personal resort. Audio captures Harold's declaration that he's finally getting some benefit from this community pool inspection program while doing leisurely backstroke laps. When the footage shows all 3 scrambling out, blue-stained and panicking, nervous laughter ripples through the crowd. Now let's discuss the real criminal behavior, I continue, switching to financial documents. Bank records showing Brenda's fake HOA account appear on screen like evidence at a federal trial. 6 years of fraudulent fines, $18,000 stolen from neighbors, monthly BMW payments funded by extortion. The community reaction is immediate and explosive. Mrs. Melanie stands first. $800 for a fake mailbox violation. I paid because she threatened to put a lien on my house. Jim Kowalski. $650 for flying an American flag. She said patriotic displays violated community aesthetic standards she invented. Sarah Thompson. $400 for garden gnome placement. Apparently my gnome was 3 inches too tall according to regulations that don't exist. David Rodriguez. $1,200 for Christmas lights. She called it excessive holiday display and threatened daily fines until I paid. One by one, victims share their stories while Brenda's blue face cycles through shades of panic that have nothing to do with methylene blue. The math becomes undeniable. Systematic fraud targeting every family brave enough to speak up. "This is all lies and conspiracy," Brenda shrieks, blue mascara streaking down her still blue cheeks. "I've served this community for 6 years. You're all ungrateful for my sacrifice and dedication." That's when Officer Rodriguez steps forward with information that destroys her final defense. "Ma'am, I've reviewed the county records. There hasn't been a legitimate HOA in Willowbrook Heights since 1995. You've been operating under completely fictitious authority." The silence that follows could power a small city. Reporter Sarah Martinez seizes the moment. "Mrs. Whitmore, how do you respond to allegations that you've been collecting fees under false pretenses for 6 years? Brenda's meltdown is spectacular. "These people don't understand community standards. Without proper authority, neighborhoods become chaos. I was protecting property values. By stealing $18,000? Mrs. Melanie asks with librarian precision. "By conducting illegal pool parties during fake inspections?" adds Jim Kowalski. "By turning blue while trespassing?" Sarah Thompson's question triggers open laughter from the crowd. Brenda threatens to sue everyone for defamation and conspiracy, claims police and fire department are part of Marcus's revenge scheme, announces she's contacting federal authorities about domestic terrorism through chemical weapons. Her final desperate act, storming toward the exit while declaring, "This neighborhood will regret crossing me." But she stops at the door when she realizes 30 people are filming her blue-stained exit with their phones. The community solidarity that emerges is beautiful to witness. Neighbors exchange contact information, agree to support each other against retaliation, establish plans for legitimate neighborhood governance. Nathaniel receives unanimous thanks as community hero, while Brenda's 6-year reign of terror crumbles in real time. Social media explodes with hashtag #BlueHOA, Karen hashtag trending locally. Patricia's live stream reaches 50,000 views. Harold quietly admits he was just following Brenda's instructions and offers to testify about the fraud scheme. Legal consequences begin immediately. Officer Rodriguez takes formal statements about criminal fraud, the district attorney's office gets contacted about felony charges, and a civil attorney offers class action representation to all victims. But the most satisfying moment comes when Brenda, still blue and increasingly isolated, realizes her criminal empire built on fake authority has collapsed completely. Some justice is worth waiting years to witness. Sunday morning, Channel 9 News opens with the story that makes my teacher heart swell with pride. Blue HOA fraud exposed by chemistry teacher. The footage of 3 blue-stained criminals climbing out of my pool while screaming about chemical warfare plays on every local station like a comedy sketch that writes itself. Social media detonates overnight. Hashtag #BlueHoKaren trends statewide within 12 hours. The security footage hits 75,000 YouTube views by breakfast. Neighborhood supporters share screenshots of Brenda's fraudulent bank records, and national HOA horror story blogs pick up the tale of the Smurf scammer who marked herself blue while committing crimes. But Brenda's response to her viral humiliation exceeds every expectation for unhinged behavior. Monday morning, she calls Channel 9 demanding retraction of false reporting and defamatory coverage. When they decline, she shows up at the community center still noticeably blue, confronting anyone who'll listen about media conspiracy and neighborhood betrayal. Tuesday, she corners Mrs. Melanie at the grocery store, voice loud enough to echo through produce aisles. "You people destroyed an innocent woman's reputation with lies and chemical warfare." Other shoppers slowly back away as Brenda rants about criminal conspiracy to undermine legitimate community leadership. Mrs. Melanie calmly continues selecting apples while Brenda melts down beside the organic bananas. Wednesday evening brings the confrontation I've been expecting. Brenda arrives at my house with her husband Dale, just returned from a pharmaceutical sales trip to find his wife transformed into a blue-stained neighborhood pariah. "What the hell did you do to my wife?" Dale demands, clearly struggling to process the situation. I leave for 10 days and come back to find her looking like a science experiment. The gathering crowd of neighbors provides perfect audience for Brenda's final performance. She launches into a 15-minute tirade about chemical terrorism, neighborhood conspiracy, and innocent community leaders under attack by dangerous criminals. Dale's expression shifts from confusion to horror as neighbors provide calm, detailed explanations of 6 years of fraud, fake authority, and systematic extortion. His face cycles through disbelief, embarrassment, and fury as the truth becomes undeniable. "Brenda, you've been stealing from our neighbors?" he asks, voice barely containing rage. "You've been breaking into people's pools? You've been running a fake HOA?" That's when Brenda completely loses whatever remained of her sanity. "I'll burn down this whole neighborhood before I let you people destroy me," she screams, voice carrying across 3 blocks. "You think you've won? I'll make your lives hell. I'll report all of you for conspiracy. I'll sue everyone for everything." The threats of property damage and violence are the final straw. Officer Rodriguez, called by concerned neighbors, arrives to find Brenda in full meltdown mode, threatening arson while surrounded by witnesses recording everything. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for making terroristic threats and public disturbance," Rodriguez announces, approaching with backup officers who've responded to the domestic situation. The perp walk is everything I could have hoped for. News trucks arrive as Brenda, still faintly blue around the edges, gets loaded into a police car while screaming about persecution of innocent community leaders and chemical warfare by domestic terrorists. Dale grants an exclusive interview to reporter Sarah Martinez. "I had no idea about any fake HOA or stolen money. I thought she was legitimately helping the neighborhood. This is completely insane." But the mic drop moment comes when Sarah approaches me at my front gate with Zoe beside me, both of us watching the circus with scientific fascination. "Mr. Fletcher, any statement about this remarkable situation?" I look directly into the camera, arm around my daughter who's grinning like she's witnessing the best chemistry demonstration ever. Sometimes the best way to expose a bully is to let them expose themselves. And sometimes chemistry teachers know that every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. Zoe whispers loudly enough for the microphone to catch. "Daddy made the mean Smurf lady go away with science." The clip becomes the most shared soundbite from the entire story, playing on national news as an example of creative problem-solving and community justice. Legal resolution follows swiftly. Brenda pleads guilty to 6 counts of fraud, 12 counts of extortion, and making terroristic threats. 18 months probation, community service, full restitution to victims, and permanent ban from serving in any HOA capacity statewide. Dale files for divorce within 2 weeks, citing criminal fraud, community embarrassment, and complete breakdown of trust. The house goes up for sale immediately. National attention follows. CNN picks up the story for human interest segments. HOA reform advocates use the case as prime example of unchecked authority abuse, and chemistry education organizations praise the practical application demonstration. Pool supply companies offer me lifetime maintenance supplies. The state creates new HOA fraud prevention legislation nicknamed Brenda's Law. But the most satisfying result is watching Brenda's blue staining finally fade after 10 days, knowing her criminal record and public humiliation will last forever. Some chemistry lessons leave permanent marks on more than just skin. 6 months later, I'm floating in crystal clear pool water, watching Zoe practice diving, while Mrs. Melanie tends her roses along the fence line. The gentle evening breeze carries the scent of chlorine mixed with blooming flowers, the same peaceful combination that first made this place feel like home. The legitimate Willowbrook Heights Community Association holds monthly meetings in the actual community center with transparent budgets, voluntary participation, and 0 fraudulent fines. 15 neighbors actively contribute to discussions about park maintenance, neighborhood watch programs, and community events. Mrs. Melanie serves as our elected president with unanimous support and the kind of genuine authority Brenda could never fake. Our annual Blue Pool Party has become neighborhood legend. What started as commemoration of victory over fraud evolved into the community's premier social event, raising funds for local STEM education and celebrating the power of neighbors working together. This year's party drew 50-plus attendees, complete with blue-themed refreshments and chemistry demonstration booths that make learning fun for kids. The Willowbrook STEM Scholarship Program, born from our shared experience of overcoming fake authority, awarded its first 3 recipients last month. Mrs. Melanie's granddaughter Emma received funding for environmental science studies, the Kowalski twins got support for engineering programs, and Sarah Thompson's nephew earned chemistry camp tuition. The scholarship represents everything our community learned about channeling anger into positive action. But the real transformation goes deeper than money or programs. Property values increased 12% this year due to positive media coverage and genuine community cooperation. The Neighborhood Watch program Jim Kowalski organized has eliminated break-ins and vandalism. Monthly potlucks strengthen relationships that fraud and fear had damaged for years. Brenda's aftermath serves as cautionary tale shared in HOA Facebook groups across the country. She moved to Arizona after her divorce finalized, required to disclose her fraud conviction on rental applications, and barred from community leadership roles by court order. Her story appears in consumer protection educational materials and legal textbooks as a case study in suburban fraud. Dale rebuilt his reputation through genuine community service, volunteering with neighborhood cleanup efforts and openly sharing his experience about recognizing manipulation. "I was traveling so much I never questioned her authority," he told the local paper. "Now I know that blind trust enables criminal behavior." The broader impact exceeds our little neighborhood. Colorado passed legislation requiring HOA transparency and public verification of authority. Consumer protection offices statewide use our case for educational presentations about questioning fake authority. I've spoken at teacher conferences about real-world chemistry applications and creative problem-solving techniques that engage students while serving justice. My chemistry classes now include a unit on applied chemistry for social good, where students learn about methylene blue, consumer fraud detection, and using scientific knowledge to protect communities. Zoe, starting high school chemistry 2 years early, helps design experiments that teach both molecular science and critical thinking about authority claims. The pool remains our neighborhood gathering spot, but now it represents something larger. Proof that ordinary people can defeat systematic fraud through patience, documentation, and well-applied chemistry knowledge. Every summer evening, when neighbors drop by for spontaneous conversations over the fence, I'm reminded that community strength grows from shared struggle and mutual support. Local news returns annually for Where Are They Now? Follow-up segments, documenting our thriving neighborhood association and expanding scholarship program. The contrast between current cooperation and Brenda's reign of terror illustrates how quickly communities recover when fake authority gets replaced by genuine collaboration. Teaching moments continue daily. When new neighbors ask about our community's unusual history, we share the full story as education about verification, documentation, and collective action. The tale of the blue HOA, Karen, becomes a teaching tool for recognizing and confronting fraud wherever it appears. As I type this, watching Zoe organize chemistry supplies for tomorrow's neighborhood science fair, I realize our victory created something Brenda never imagined. Authentic community built on transparency, mutual respect, and shared commitment to protecting each other from future scams.
You know, Nathaniel had every right to call the police first time he saw those people using his pool. Most people would have lost it. Hell, most people would have completely lost it when they see $15,000 in fraudulent fines. But Nathaniel didn't, and that's what made the difference. Brenda ran this scam for 6 years because she understood something about people. We don't like confrontation. We hope that someone else checked the law, we pay the fines and just hope that it would go away. And she was counting on that fear. But Nathaniel took the time to read the 1987 bylaws and documented everything. He built a case instead of getting angry. And when he finally acted, well, let's just say methylene blue has a way of making the truth invisible to everyone. I've covered a lot of these HOA stories and this pattern keeps showing up. The words associations, they often operate outside their real authority. So nobody cared to check what's the real law and what's creative interpretations. Makes me wonder, How many other Brendas are out there claiming authority they didn't have? Have you ever dealt with someone like that? If this story helps someone avoid getting scammed, we're doing something right. If this one hits home for you, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. There's always another Brenda, but there can always be another Nathaniel.